What's up guys, Alan Brock here, coming to you from my annual end of the year backpacking trip. For about the past 4 or 5 years, the week between Christmas and New Year, I've either done a really long hike or a backpacking trip. So this year I had the kind of audacious goal to do the 70 plus miles of Appalachian Trail through the Smokies. I was going to take 5 nights and just hike all that. So I ran that idea by management. So what do you say?
No.
And it was declined. It was declined. So I wanted 5 nights. She wanted me to stay 2 nights. So we compromised. So how about 5 nights?
2.
4.
2.
3.
1.
2 sounds great. And I decided to stay 2 nights. I was going to do the traditional vlog, but yesterday I decided to crush a ton of miles. So I did just under 22 miles yesterday. Obviously vlogging kind of slows me down a bit, so I didn't do any vlogging of hiking yesterday, and I'm just exhausted today. I rolled out of my sleeping bag about 11 o'clock this morning. So instead of doing the traditional trip vlog, I decided to do a kind of a year in review type of video, and it was brought on by the fact that one of Ansel Adams' famous quotes was, 12 images in any year is a good crop. So I decided to pick my 12 favorite images of the year. Some you've seen on YouTube, some you haven't. If you follow me on Instagram, remember Instagram, follow me there. I've posted them all there, but I wanted to go over my favorite images of the year and kind of what they mean, why they are my favorites, and hopefully you will enjoy them too. Are they all significant? To me they are. This year I think has produced some of my best work, which is always what you want. I think you always want to kind of be on an upward trajectory, hopefully improving over time. So I think my work has gotten better this year. I'm excited to show you guys these images, and they're kind of in chronological order, but let's just get started. Some of them will be taken with film, some with digital, and one in particular, digital, you'll see in a second. But yeah, let's get started. Okay, so image number 1, I entitled it Through the Woods, over the river and through the woods, because there's a river going through the woods. But it was actually taken on this same backpacking trip last year, so technically it may not be a 2017 image, but I included it in this video. This is, again, it's in the Smoky Mountains, and I really enjoy it because the river kind of has that nice little S-curve that photographers are always searching for, and it just leads perfectly from the foreground through the midground all the way into those background trees. That's what I really like in an image, if there's an element that ties everything together. And so one of the reasons I like this image, that trip in particular was pretty miserable. I only made it 1 night, and I think I'd scheduled to stay 3. Not that it was cold, it was actually pretty warm, but it rained. Where I was just didn't present many photographic opportunities, with this one exception. And it's truly a unique Smoky Mountains image. I kind of meandered through the woods a bit to find it, so this image won't be seen anywhere else. It's not like any icon shots from Klingman's Dome or anything like that. But yeah, start off the year, kind of ending the last year, one of my favorite images from a not so great trip. Okay, so this second image was taken on 35mm Portra, and it's an image of my daughter. I'm really trying to get her to enjoy and embrace the outdoors. So every spring and every fall we take her on a camping trip. Sometimes it's backpacking, as we've started to do. Sometimes it's just to a local state campground, which is what this image is from. But just trying to ease her into it without forcing it too much, so she'll enjoy it. This was on one of those trips, and it really shows off her personality. She's got the pink jumpsuit on, and she can be the, I guess, the typical girly girl. She likes her dolls, likes fixing her hair, things like that. But she also will go out on these camping trips and do the less girly girl type things, I guess. I don't want to stereotype too much. She likes to be outside, I'll say that. But so this image just kind of combines those two things together. you've got the nice side light coming in, and then the very graphical elements of the straight lines of the rail in the background. So one of my favorite subjects, and then all the other elements came together in the image nicely. Okay, so image number 3, I did a video about this image. I called it Sea of Life. About a year ago, almost a year exactly, when the forest fires came through the Smokies and devastated a large portion of this area. A few months after that, as the regrowth started to happen, what I was blown away by, even though it was winter time, were just how green the greens were. It was almost like you took the saturation slider in Photoshop and just cranked it up. They didn't even look real, that new life. And so I was fascinated by the juxtaposition of the new life and then the burning trees. So as I showed in the video, I found a composition that showed both of those things. And then just a few weeks ago, I drove by that area, and it's completely unrecognizable now. You can't even tell there was a fire there. They cut a lot of the burned trees down, and of course this time of year, now everything is dead. So it's, in 1 year, the change it's gone through from being, kind of wintertime like it is now, to being burned, to all the grasses being grown around it. And now it just doesn't look anything like it. So the amount of change that something can go through in a year is really just breathtaking if you watch it. And so this image was one of my favorites because I think it kind of told the story where there's life and death in the image. Okay, so image number 4, and this is actually a series of 3 images, but it's not cheating. You'll see why in a second. But these images are of my kids from summer vacation. We went to the beach right around Tampa this summer, and typical summer thunderstorms came through, and then the light after those thunderstorms was unreal. So one day we took the kids down to the beach to do some pictures of them, and the tide had gone out, so it created these little tidal pools of water on the beach, which the kids just love splashing through. So in addition to that, I was able to get low and get some reflections. And the reason I like these images so much are, of course, the light was really good, but personalities show through in the images. The twins. One twin is, to put it nicely, a complete spaz.
Hit it!
So you see this in the image as he was running through, just splashing as much as possible. His shirt's completely soaked. He's got this just huge grin on his face. Really shows his personality. The younger twin is, up until recently, was more reserved. And again, you can see that in the image as well. What we did is we told him to run toward the camera. And so he just followed directions perfectly. He ran toward the camera. There's barely a drop of water on his shirt. So again, it shows the two differences in personalities with the twins. And then with my daughter, she really, really loves animals. So there was this seagull out there that she kept trying to catch. And I don't know what she was going to do with it if she caught it, but she kept chasing after it. Again, there's a huge grin on her face. And the light in this one is just it's a really high-key image. It almost expands out into infinity, and these were all 3 taken with a Canon 5D Mark III and a 50mm lens, which is just my favorite digital combination. But the image in particular of my daughter, if I had panned 1 inch to the right, you would see just the line of condos down the beach. So it's kind of a tricky composition to get, but as it stands, I was able to get it in just nothing else but her and the bird and the vast ocean in the background. So one of my favorites of my 3 kids. Those all 3 of those are hanging in our house. Really, really like the lights and how it showed their personalities. Okay, so image number 5. I haven't talked about this branch of photography on my YouTube channel yet, but astrophotography is something I'm really big into. We lived really close to a city for about 5 years, so I wasn't able to do it much, but we moved. We're back out in the country now, so I was able to break out the setup. In addition, the telescope I used for this image has a 7-year waiting list. When I graduated school, of course, I was in no position to afford a telescope like this, but I put my name on the list thinking, 7-8 years from now, I may be able to afford it. At that time, the waiting list was 7 years, so when 7 years came and went and I didn't hear anything, I thought, oh well, they lost my information. Fast forward to, I think, March of 2017, I got the email, and they gave you 12 days to decide if you wanted it or not. And I went back and forth saying, do I really need it? Of course I didn't need it, but I decided to go for it. So I got the new telescope with an 8-year waiting period, and then I also bought a new camera that's just an astrophotography camera. Technically it is a large format camera, so it would fit this channel, but it only takes monochrome images. So the way you make images is you shoot at least 4 sets of images. You shoot a shot with no filter, and then through a red filter, a green filter, and a blue filter. You combine all those in software, do a ton of editing. Astrophotography requires just insane amounts of editing, and you come up with a final image. This is probably my best astrophoto to date. This is M8, the Lagoon Nebula. And then I'll also pop up an image of what the camera spits out, a linear TIFF file. It's just shocking what you can do with all the data in that image, but what it initially comes out as is shocking as well. But takes, I think this one was about 10 hours of exposure time, and then another, 4 to 5 to edit to tease out all that faint data. But like I said, this is probably my best astrophoto to date. It was first light through the new telescope. There's still some kinks I have to work out in the coming months to get it fully where I want it. But yeah, one of my favorite images from the year. Okay, so we can't talk astrophotos without talking the eclipse. The eclipse, August 21st, 2017, went straight through my hometown. I did a whole video about it, so I won't talk too much, but just truly, truly one of the most amazing events that I've ever experienced. I have plans to go chase the next one in right about 6.5 years from now, but just the first time I looked through a telescope and saw the moon just touching the sun, I'll never forget that feeling. So just the series of images from that day, the whole experience of that day is just something I will never ever forget, and truly some of my favorite images of the year came from that day. Those were all taken, technical details, through the telescope with a Canon Rebel T2i, so definitely camera-wise not cutting-edge technology, but yeah, just what an incredible day. I encourage all of you to try to witness the next eclipse that goes through the U.S. if at all possible. Drive hours and hours and hours. Trust me, it's going to be worth it. Okay, so image number 7, I think we're at now, is the image I took on the Ocoee River. Again, I did a video about that, so I won't explain too much, but it's the one that got me in Ilford's online magazine, which I was really pumped about. Just a really, really fun morning to shoot. Like I said, I was right off the road, so I was maybe 20 feet away from a pretty main road, but the fog kind of muffles all sound. So even though I was close to civilization, I still felt just completely out there by myself. Again, the fog had a lot to do with that. One thing about that day is, as I was shooting, another car pulled in, and it was actually a film photographer. He had a TLR, I think it was a Mamiya C33, or a Yashica. Yeah, it was a Yashica mat. Anyway, twin lens camera, so you had just 2 film photographers there, which is pretty rare, especially with his TLR. But really, really, really magical morning. The image turned out exactly like I had envisioned it. Maybe one of the better images I have ever taken. I love the feeling that the reflection and then completely nothing behind it. You don't know where you are. It almost looks photoshopped, like you just took away the background. But on the extreme left side of the image, you can see just a faint darkness of where the mountain is on that side of the lake. Anyway, did a video about it. One of my favorite images of the year. maybe of all time. Okay, so image number 8. This was from a trip to Mount LeConte, and I had fully intended to do the typical hiking vlogging with that trip, but I think 2 nights before, one of the hurricanes that hit Florida so hard had come all the way up through Florida and actually gone through Tennessee with enough strength that it knocked a bunch of trees down. There was still a lot of rain in the area for that, so I started a vlog at the cars, and just there was so much mist, I didn't want it to ruin my gear. Furthermore, I was actually with a group of about 20 people making the hike. If you've never done the hike before, you get to the top of this mountain, and there's these primitive lodges that you have to reserve a spot at, but they serve breakfast and dinner. Really a really neat experience to go, but it's difficult to get those reservations book up quickly. Anyway, had the chance to go, took it, and as I said, there was a lot of still moisture in the air. It was just hiking through mist the entire time. Initially, I had planned to get a sunrise and or a sunset shot from the top of the mountain because they're really good up there, but we were just fogged in. You couldn't see anything from your typical viewpoints. What I did come across, though, was this scene, and I have noticed it before while hiking. After rain and or snowmelt, you get this little stream coming in from the left side of the image, and what you can't see on this day, but when it's clear, is you've got nothing but mountain range in the background. The previous time I hiked through there, the light was really harsh, so there wasn't an image there, but this fog, man, it tied everything together beautifully. So one of my favorite images from the year, I know I've said that about just about every image, but it is my top 12 images. Furthermore, this image in particular has really, really kind of cemented the fact that I can shoot Ektar viably. This was on 4x5 Ektar, standing literally on the trail. But up until this point, I was always worried about, what happens when Velvia goes away? Am I going to still be able to shoot color film? And this image, and then one I'll show a little bit later on, was those were 2 images that said to me, okay, I can do this with Ektar if it comes down to only shooting Ektar. But it's a really dramatic image, really moody, and one of my favorites from the year. Image number 9. So 9 through 12, these last 4 images are going to be from my trip from Utah. So I know this is kind of fresh in everyone's mind if you watch the channel, but I just want to talk about each one individually. This was my first exposure on the trip, and this combined with image number 8 from this list, these are the images that make me not worry about having to shoot Ektar if Velvia ever bites the dust. This, like I said, was my first image on the trip. We found this little slot canyon. I actually knew about it from research and knew that it was potentially a good spot for images. But you're just hiking through this slot canyon, and it was impossible to do any research as far as knowing when the light would hit or not. But this composition really stood out to me. It was bright on the edges and then funneled back to this kind of large triangle-shaped dark spot. And to me, that just really, really, I don't know, it represented like the entrance to an old temple, if that makes any sense. It was just the feeling I got having hiked through it and then turning around and seeing it. I named the image Forbidden Temple because it was just kind of ominous how all the light funneled back into this dark, almost like a door. So a really dramatic image. Was really fortunate to get it because, like I said, there's no way to know when the light would hit. But I love how Ektar handled the highlights and shadows. It does so well. It seems like the higher the contrast, the better that Ektar does, both in this image and then the previous image I didn't mention, but the difference in dynamic range from the bright fog in that image to the dark shadows in the especially those mid-ground trees was 8 or 9 stops at least. So the better Ektar does better, the higher the contrast is, in my opinion. So anyway, Forbidden Temple, first image that I took from this trip, and one of my favorites. Okay, so image number 10. This was taken on my second day of the trip, And this is one of those times where you turn around the corner and see a glow in a slot canyon, and it literally takes your breath away. You just think, I can't believe this exists in nature. So this was, again, a glow I just happened to come up on just randomly, and it was so intense. But even though the glow was very bright, the dynamic range in the scene was low enough that I could shoot Velvia on it. So this was taken on 4x5 Velvia. I literally just metered for the highlights, for the glow, and then I bumped that area maybe, I don't know, a half a stop. I can't remember for sure. Everything else in the scene just fit nicely within Velvia's roughly 4 to 5 stop latitude. Furthermore, I think it was the left-hand wall. I don't see these as I'm talking here, but I think the left-hand wall was kind of bathed in the sky. The sky was illuminating it, so it has a really blue tone, and then the blue plays off the oranges nicely, kind of those complementary colors there. But just a really, really intense glow. Velvia did its thing with this glow, and yeah, I keep saying it, but one of my favorites from the year. This one, because of the intensity of the colors, this one I think for me is probably an all-timer, definitely a portfolio shot. But again, I sound like a broken record, but that trip is something I'll never forget. One of the reasons is for glows like that we came across. All right, image number 11. This is my favorite image from the year. Again, taken on the second day I was there. This is actually a glow that we saw on our first day in that canyon, but as I was shooting it, I had mentioned in the videos, the light was just fading. I took a shot with the light fading that I actually enjoyed, but this image with the glow in full effect was what I was going for. It's not a landscape image, it's a vertical composition, but still, it is my favorite image for the year. I love the intense light. You've got the striations in the wall on the left side leading into it. Kind of that faint S-curve as it comes down the wall. Just everything about this image came together. I think that was a single exposure. I can't remember if I shot doubles on that or not, but that was also shot on Ektar because the difference in dynamic range from that dark right wall to the glow was well above 5 stops. There's not a lot of detail in that right wall. It's mostly shadow, but that's not important to me. The important thing is the glow there. There's enough detail in that right hand wall to where it doesn't go black and is distracting, but you've got the foreground, that path kind of leading you into the glow, and I composed it, rule of thirds, put the glow in the right hand third of the image. Just maybe the best image I've ever taken, not sure, but there are varying opinions. These are all subjective, but in my opinion, that's probably the best image I've ever taken. Okay, so number 12. As kind of the order I've done these video journals in, I haven't showed this image yet. So if you like seeing the images revealed as I shoot them that way, then stop the video right now, but like and subscribe first, but stop the video and you can come back and watch this later, because this image has not been shown in video just yet. So this is the last landscape shot I took on our trip down into the canyon. One thing I always kind of preach more to myself than anything else is that an image has to stand on its own, which is difficult. As landscape photographers, all our senses are involved as we're setting up a shot. Just like beside me now, you've got the rushing river. You're out doing these hikes, so you're involved with nature. All those aspects are coming together to give you an emotion about the shot that you're going to take. But none of that comes into play when someone views the image. All they see is what the image is. So I always kind of think to myself, okay, this image has to stand on its own. No matter what I'm going through with the hike or what I'm hearing around me. None of that the viewer is going to be able to recognize. It's just the image itself. All that being said, it's impossible not to view this image personally from the lens of everything that came together. The trip, all the planning, everything we had to go through to make this image happen. For me, I just can't ignore it in this case. Even though I preach to ignore all that stuff when making images, I just can't. This image was the reason that I did this trip. When I was doing research, I knew that this canyon had a section that was just like the Narrows, very similar to it. And that's what drew me to it. The Narrows, my favorite hike, but it's crowded. Nobody was in the canyon this day, or probably any other day that we were out on the trip. But it was just like the Narrows. You had the river going through it, the walls, the glows were different. In the Narrows, you get more of this kind of red-orange. Well, here the glows were more golden colored. But this image, just everything tied together so well in the image. One thing about this section of the hike that was supposed to be like the Narrows, the water was really deep, so you didn't get a lot of white water. Typically, I like to use that white water as a anchoring foreground element. But in this case, we had some white water. We had a huge boulder down there that anchored the foreground. The river led back to this huge golden glowed wall. The glow wasn't intense, but it's still beautiful. This image was why I did the trip. It was the culmination of a year of planning, of dreaming about it, of hard work testing gear, hard work just to get there. And I just can't separate the emotion of the image from the image itself. That being said, for all the reasons I mentioned earlier, the image is pretty decent. It works pretty well, I think. It's a good image. But for me, all those elements coming together with the planning, it was just the trip of a lifetime. And to be able to get this shot, something that mimics the Narrows so closely, but is, on the other hand, nothing like the Narrows at all. One of my favorites from the year. So I know I said that a lot about these images, but again, they're the top 12. They should all be good, right? Hopefully you guys got 12 significant images in the year. Hopefully much more than that. I don't shoot a lot, so I could only come up with 12. It was a good year photographically. One of my favorite years ever, in fact. Not just for landscape-wise, but I was able to take meaningful images of my kids. Was able to bust out a new telescope and kind of reinvigorate that passion that I once had for astrophotography. Had some stuff published in a magazine, which was a really big deal for me. So anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. Thanks for all your support over the years. I've really got big plans for this YouTube channel coming up in 2018. I'm going to do a video about resolutions, and I'm big on resolutions, and this channel is going to get my full attention as it comes to resolutions, which I typically follow through on. So I'm excited about the future. I'm excited for you guys that support me, offer the encouraging words, do all the commenting, liking, subscribing. That really means a lot to me. I hope your 2017 produced a lot of great images, a lot of great times. 2018, let's make it even better. Thanks for watching this video. Like, subscribe, do all that. We'll see you next time.